welcome to Property Quorum. As ever, joined by the stalwarts, Chris Gilsenan of Root Home, Juliet Baboolal of gunnercooke, and of course, our Lord and Master Hamish McLay of Search and Convey, and of course, the newest of us, I would say, to the happy throng is, of course, Michelle Carr, guardian angel of construction. And what a time it's been. Apparently, because moves are afoot at the party conference, there may be potentially a green light for property. Or is it? That's today's discussion. And as usual, I'm going to throw Hamish straight under the bus. Does it make any difference at all, Hamish?
Yes. And,
well, I'm glad we had that conversation. Moving on.
Let me first of all say, I am sat here in my jacket that I bought myself. Fairly recently, I didn't have a sponsor who was actually going to sort of buy it for me, so I thought, I like that jacket. I think I shall have it. And
it looks well on you.
Some say a few other bits and pieces. However, enough of that. I think the sad aspect is, whilst we had a comment from one of our team on another event that was suggesting it was rather fortunate we had a person who had held such a significant position within the legal framework prior to becoming a politician. We would expect nothing but great things to happen and things to be tidied up in terms of what was going on within property law and things of that nature. Yet we have a number of contradictions coming through from aspects that were mentioned no, I didn't follow it all. I picked up little bits and pieces from alleged experts, but I felt there was a tremendous amount of contradiction in terms of what was being said. And I rather thought the whole aspect was to even the playing field rather than sort of make it much more complicated. I don't know. Maybe that was just me. Perhaps I need to delve a little bit further. Maybe some of you experts with us today can actually sort of explain to me that you see some absolutely great green lights there and fantastic things happening for everybody, particularly pensioners who are frozen out of things at the moment, it would appear.
Juliet. Now, I would go to Chris at this point, but I know exactly what he's going to say. So before I go to him, I've got to ask you, of course, didn't it used to be the expression of the green shoots? Does it mean green shoots will be appearing? I always loved that idea of green shoots. Green shoots appearing. Now, after this amazing conference, of course, they're going to ramp up house building and the property market's going to take a huge leap of faith. Right?
Well, time will tell. Time will tell. I think it's one of those things where are we being fed empty promises or not? And time will tell, and it really depends on the perspective or whose perspective you're looking at. Are you looking at it from a developer's perspective or from a tenant's perspective, for example? There was a quotation on LinkedIn where someone said that the exiting government left this new government in such a pickle that it would be near on impossible to pick up the pieces and rectify things. And, what is that measuring stick to say that, we're doing something positive or we're moving towards achieving what they've set out to achieve or getting those green shoots? It's actually seeing the green shoots, and we're still in the early stages of that. So I just think it's a waiting game. It's a waiting game for all of us. I mean, I certainly can't say that anything's really trickled down, that I've seen the effects, whether negative or positive, from a legal perspective. So, I'll reiterate, I think it's all in sort of the timing, and time will tell.
Chris, green shoots or green mold?
I'm confused at the point of the question. I mean, so what if there's a conference going on?
All right. Can you just hold back on the cynicism for just one tenth of a second here? Surely it's an indicator that they mean to start as they go on and make positive changes for us all. And of course that reflects in the property industry, doesn't it, Chris?
Why is this? Because they're sat in a massive warehouse in Liverpool having a conflab? I'm not sure.
air conditioned, well catered to box in Liverpool, I'll have you know. And they're supposed to be all talking very positively, right?
Well, you'd like to think so, but I mean, they did come to power on a manifesto in the first place, so I'm not sure why they've got to go and try and rewrite the script. They've got their points, their pledges that they've got into a position of power with. Why can't they just move forwards with those?
I think it's as Topol said from Fiddler on the Roof, tradition. Always traditionally rewrite the script shortly after they've sold us all on it. This is script version 1.2, I think, but hopefully it involves lots of house building. I'm going to welcome straight to the stage Michelle Carr. Michelle, you've got some good news for us, haven't you?
No, I don't, because I don't believe any of it. I mean, if we go back and have a look online to when the Conservative government came in, pretty sure their thing was, we've got such a terrible mess we need to rectify and we need to make it all better. And it was probably the same when the Labour came in before that. And that's the excuse, they've got such a big mess. As far as I'm concerned and what my clients are seeing, they're just putting stops to everything. So I've just found out this morning that a project that was due to start in October has now been put up back to February at the very, very minimum, which is a construction project that's been stopped by Labour. I'm aware of other projects that are being stopped because they've put a horse on, they've basically put the brakes on everything. But also they're talking utter nonsense, because any big development and any serious housing development takes a minimum of 3 years. A minimum of 3 years, if not 4, to get through planning. So ultimately, anything that starts now is highly unlikely to be built, to get all of the ducks in a row, to get all the structural engineers, to get the cost, to get the resources, to get planning permission, to understand, to do the ground investigations, because there's also seasons. There are certain things that you cannot do in certain seasons because of wildlife and other things. There are so many boxes that need to be ticked to get a big development going. I've worked on a number of housing projects and they've taken 4 or 5 years to get it off the ground. So the fact that they're saying they're going to do all these things are impossible. Totally impossible.
Consider my rose-tinted spectacles thrown on the ground and stamped upon.
It's impossible unless they're going to change planning regulations and they're going to change legal regulations. They're going to change environmental regulations. There's so much that needs to be involved before you can even get your planning through, let alone put a spade in the ground. It's unlikely that we're going to see anything for at least the very quickest 2 years, but more than likely it won't be anything to happen until 4 years. So then what are they going to achieve in the 4 years' time? That in this current government.
And even with this huge mandate, things could fall apart. So that therefore in 4 years' time we could have yet another government, couldn't we? So, in which case all the promises dashed to the floor.
I mean, for example, Grenfell Towers, that shocked the whole of the construction industry. There was a big thing about the fact that the council and Labour were blaming the Conservatives because it was a Conservative area at the time. But when everything was approved and they decided not to have sprinklers, it was Jeremy Corbyn that made that choice, that decided not to put sprinklers in that particular building. So that all went a bit hush-hush. And that's the thing, is because these things take long, politicians just take advantage of what's probably a good thing that's done from a previous government. They'll take the credit for it. And if it's a bad thing, they'll blame the current government. And it's been going on for years and years and years.
At least they didn't put a note in the Treasury saying all the money's gone, I suppose. They did. Hamish, come on now. You've got to inject a light of enthusiasm in this otherwise dark corner.
Oh, no, sorry. That was what deprived apparently the poor pensioners of their money, is this black hole of goodness knows how many billions or millions. I'm sure that Sakir managed to sort of save some monies on his trip over to the United Nations, or wherever he went straight after that. I mean, there's 2 massive great meetings this week. I wonder what they've achieved other than, I think there is a lot of hot air, obviously to do with sort of flying, to do whatever you're doing. I don't know. I guess there's even a lot of hot air here, even sat within our sort of little offices where we happen to be. We were all actually in the United Kingdom, but we didn't use much sort of, it didn't contribute to sort of anything detrimental to the environment. I think just sort of getting here. There's a lot of things which I do believe could be happening, and I hope will happen. I do appreciate what Michelle just said then, because it does actually put a point of realization. It doesn't matter when you start a tanker off coming in from China, for example. That tanker is massive, and it takes a good while to get up to top speed, which ain't very top, to be perfectly honest. It's just it's a bit above walking pace, but not a lot.
It's about as fast as an asthmatic ant carrying a heavy load of shopping.
But you try and stop it. I mean, eventually it does get wherever it needs to get, and it's exactly the same with projects. You can't change things overnight, and in order for things to have happened, the change needed to have taken place. Now, the Conservatives actually were putting one or two positive things in place. Sadly, it was sort of countered a bit by the difficulties and the challenges. And I think we do have issues here. How much should the government be involved in certain things? I mean, we do have at the moment, sadly, not yet another government reliant upon the top 10 builders, for example, to ensure that we get all this build quantity together there. So all these, now sadly, those top 10 builders are also very guilty. Maybe I've got it wrong with one of them. If I've got it wrong with you, fine, that's okay. But they're guilty of a combination of shoddy workmanship and actually cutting corners on materials which they've used in properties they built previously, which they're having to remediate. And they haven't remediated them, then they're refusing to remediate. And we still haven't found out that they need remediate. But these people are going to be relied upon to put our next 1.5 million in the next 5 years. And Michelle's already, well, hang on. You ain't got planning permission for 1.5 million houses at the moment. Wait till you've got planning permission, then you might be able to do something with it.
I'm sorry, I've got to. This is too much of an open goal, Michelle. All these terrible top 10 builders, they need to remediate, and they haven't done it yet. What's going on?
Well, I mean, to be fair, one of the things I think the government should do, if they want to help with the housing crisis, is help the people that are in houses that they can't get out of. Because ultimately, what happens in this country, especially the flats, because the flats are the ones with the cladding issues that obviously we've discussed on numerous occasions. And people can't get out of those flats, which means those flats are not available for the young couples and their new families and that kind of thing, for everybody to sort of grow and expand. And ultimately, how are people going to be able to even purchase these new houses that are coming from when there's either a lack of affordability or there's a lack of market, or people can't sell the flats that they're in? Because ultimately, if you're going to be building houses, 3 and 4 bedroom houses, most people will be growing up to that. If the people can't get out of their flats because they can't sell them because of this cladding issue, my daughter will be looking to buy a pet place in the near future. She won't be looking at a 3 or 4 bedroom house, that's for sure. She'll want a flat. And ultimately, if the flats can't be sold and they're stuck, it's stagnant. So if I was in the government, I would be saying, let's get this situation resolved. Let's get the market moving this way. Let's get all this housing that is sitting there. Some of them are empty. Some of them people are stuck in them. It's a variety. Get that situation, because that's immediate. And as soon as you get that situation resolved, there will be buyers for the new houses, etc. anyway.
Chris, it appears to be that Michelle's solved the problem already.
Yes, let's have Michelle for government.
Michelle for PM.
That's not the first time I've heard that, funnily enough.
But no, in all seriousness, guys, it appears like there's an open goal here with a striker ready to kick, but just no ball.
Yeah, my view is that there's so much regulation, and it's like wading through a minefield. So Michelle makes a really good point about the planning policy framework and how complex that is and all the different variations. You know, I've heard of projects being completely shuttered because they found a newt on the site, but it's a protected newt, so the development of 300 houses can not proceed. It's like, oh, okay.
It may be a newt, but it's my newt. No, sorry. So carry on.
I mean, we're suffering from the incoming government as well at the moment, just having projects just halted. But they're halting projects that they previously defined as their own gold standard. So it's like, well, where else are you going to go with this? I don't even understand how you're going to resolve this particular element that we're trying to help you with. So it's the actions are out of alignment so far with their words.
So look, after all that positivity, Juliet, can you help just round this off Can you help me see how that maybe some planning regulation changes, maybe a little bit of relaxation, maybe a little bit of focus on some of the areas where we can get quick wins, such as getting past all this cladding nonsense, so you could then make all those many houses and flats out there livable in? Is there
So
a way
you need people that, you know, when Michelle spoke about, you know, the sort of the differences in terms of the different elements of what's required, you're talking from someone who's got knowledge and who understands the industry. You can't take someone who's a policy maker and say, here you go. You might as well give it to AI and say, here, do a manifesto, draft something up, because you just aren't personalizing the issue enough and getting into the meat of the matter and actually dealing with the problems. So
Actually,
yes,
I was going to question whether the last manifesto was mostly written by AI, but that's another story.
you'd be surprised. I mean, so you've got this tool for AI now on the Zoom where it can actually summarize and create solutions for you. Now, if I were having a major operation and my surgeon said, I'm going to use AI to outline a course of action for you, that's not, it just wouldn't work, because AI isn't, you know, it doesn't have the human element, the speciality to do that. And so it's the same thing with the property industry. I often see things. I mean, everyone thought, you know what, getting land registry computerized and electronically done. I mean, when I qualified, it was all done on paper. It's all helpful to upload a registration, etc. But there's so much more fraud and so many sort of after effects that they haven't taught about. And why is that? It's because someone who set the policies didn't actually understand the process. And that's what's happening now. And we're sort of like, you know, you question, do they think we, the public, are that stupid? We don't actually understand, you know, what's happening. But we're feeling the effects of it. Those of us in the industry are actually feeling the effects of it. So yes, what they actually need to do is consult with someone who does understand what's required and put those changes in effect so that we can see small changes. I mean, we don't expect, you know, as Michelle said, it does take time, you know, for a development to be built, etc. Don't make promises to us where our measuring stick is that development's going to be up because the planning is going to be sorted, etc. I saw a planning condition the other day where they said that there was an archaeological requirement, which was an ongoing requirement. And the developer called me and said, you know, I've got a problem with this because I will not be able to stick to schedule. Because if I find any artifacts, it just means everything needs to stop. I mean, you know, so you need an expert who truly understands that to then, you know, make these policy decisions. And I think that's what's been lacking. And that's why we're all left disgruntled. So in terms of taking it home, I think they need to do a little bit more homework and reach out to those people who've, you know, who are dealing with this day in, day out, and actually pay heed to these opinions and do something about it.
Naz Banu, who I know is a lady who deals a lot with development work, has absolutely pointed out quite correctly, all your points are quite valid. And in answer to your question, do they think we're that stupid? We both know the answer is yes. I'm going to quickly dump Hamish in there before we actually take this home. Hamish, yeah, I know you have very strong views about computerization within the land registry. It's hardly complete, is it?
Well, there was some good news. I was very fortunate to attend a meeting earlier this week held by Land Registry, where they were showing the steps forward, the impact that has actually been made. It took quite dramatic input to actually achieve what they wanted to achieve, and they've still got a long way to go. I think we have this danger. We've seen it with local land charges offices. We've seen it in many different sort of ways, and I think is this reliance upon, I do believe that we can go a long way with data that we have now and the software solutions, which are absolutely tremendous. However, what seems to be happening at the moment, and whether we've got AI writing the script for us or whatever it happens to be doing, it's writing it ahead, very much ahead of where we actually can take it on board. Too many times we've seen this, that the solution is the data. So, right, we can get rid of people now. So people get dumped. So there isn't the human input that is required to sort out the mess that the introduction of the software has created. So it just takes longer. And unfortunately, we've still got this bit of unraveling to actually sort of do on that side. And it's the same And I think what has been obvious from the conversation we've been, not enough people are involved in, if you like, we call it the coalface, because that was certainly another time when things went seriously wrong. You need to work with people on the coalface or speak with people on the coalface to find out what happens on the coalface. If you're actually sitting at the top of some bleeding great tower somewhere or some massive great office in London, trying to speak to somebody what an experience is like on the coalface, you've lost it. And we're exactly in that particular sort of type of situation, I think. We're trying to get inexperienced politicians. They're not experienced politicians. In fact, none of them are. You think what the turnover was in the Conservative Party. We didn't get any housing ministers who became experienced. We had too many of them. So
they didn't have an opportunity to gain experience, I think.
So I haven't said anything in conclusion other than I don't know where we're going. I'll leave it with you guys.
On that happy note, and rather reminds me of the original Willy Wonka, we don't know where we're going. I would like to thank once again the stalwarts, of course, is Chris Gilsenan of Route Home, Juliet Baboolal of gunnercooke, Hamish McLay of Search Convey, and our esteemed guardian angel, I said guardian of the galaxy for a second, Michelle Carr there, guardian angel of construction. Guys, I hope you find these as amusing and interesting as I certainly do. You can tell by the smile on my face. If you enjoy this, please do carry on watching us. We're going to be putting excerpts from previous shows out there, so watch out for those. But we're here every 10 o'clock on Thursday, mulling over and coming with opinion. The caveat should be none of this should be construed as advice. It's certainly just our personal opinions on the way the world is turning. If you fancy being on the show and you find it as useful and invigorating and are in the property industry, please do speak to Hamish or myself, and we'll see what we can do. But until next week, I'd like to thank all of you for attending. Keep your feet on the ground. Keep reaching for the stars and look after that mental health. Bye-bye for now.